Hello, welcome to Culture Hash. Today we're going to talk about the new soundtrack album for the film Blue Story. Losing my voice a little bit, but we're going to power through. Blue Story is quite an exciting project. It's the upcoming feature-length film written and directed by Rapman. Rapman came to prominence last year with the 3-part YouTube series Shiro Story. The success of Shiro Story catapulted Rapman to a new level of prominence, which ended up with him being signed to Jay-Z's Rock Nation label. I loved Shiro Story last year. The story was linked thematically through Rapman's raps, which served as a narrative device and kept the action going. I'm excited to see Blue Story and how it works on the big screen when it comes out next week. We've seen some great hip-hop soundtrack albums over the years, like 8 Mile, Above the Rim, and most recently the Black Panther soundtrack. Like those great projects of the past, every artist on here takes advantage of their opportunity, and for artists like Diggity and Skrapz, this is a great platform to showcase their sounds. Skrapz Everyday is one of the best tracks on here. He's got an invigorating and exciting flow, and I love the small details in his verses, like how he talked about when he was 14, selling drugs, still in his school uniform. Gig's track, Dark Was the Case, is another strong moment on here. Giggs is a bit more introspective than we usually hear from him. It's refreshing to hear Giggs be a bit more introspective than we usually hear from him. He talks about his kids, how his oldest son is now getting to the stage where he's got his own life and wants to spend a little bit less time with Giggs. And it's interesting just hearing about how Giggs deals with this emotionally. My highlight on this soundtrack album has to be the opener, The Real Blue Story. On here, Rapman talks about himself for a change, which is rare because his story raps usually consist of telling stories about other people. This is a frank, first-person narrative about Rapman's life and how he got to where he is now. It's refreshing to hear him talk about himself because the majority of his story raps are about other people and situations that he's observed, rather than connecting to Rapman himself. I was absolutely gripped by the details he put in the story. This feels like Rapman's autobiography. It's fascinating to hear his start in the game and some of the issues he had with people not thinking that story raps would really get played on the radio. His story is inspiring because he's taken hip-hop in its own direction. Instead of creating albums, Rapman's just gone off and created YouTube videos with these narrative rapped interludes to really piece the stories together. I thought he'd go the concept album route, but building films based around his raps is just a fantastic way to go about it. And The Real Blue Story just talks about Rapman himself, starting off with his life in the ends, and eventually leading to a record deal with Jay-Z, and having his own film coming out in a week's time. The whole thing's got a real triumphant atmosphere, and feels like the last verse on Eminem's Lose Yourself. You know, when he starts rapping about himself, and it's not really about the movie anymore. There's no Mekhi Phifer's in this track, it's all about Rapman. It feels like a time capsule of who's big and who's coming up in the UK hip-hop scene. It feels like a focused, tight project, showcasing some of the best talent out of the capital at the moment. And I feel like this film and soundtrack will be remembered for years to come as a great moment for the UK hip-hop scene. So for me, Blue Story by the one and only Rapman is worthy of 8 out of 10.